In the fog-laden streets of Victorian London in 1888, fear gripped the Whitechapel district as a series of brutal murders shocked the community and baffled investigators. At the heart of this wave of terror was a mysterious figure known only as Jack the Ripper. More than a century later, the identity of this killer remains one of the most enduring mysteries in criminal history. Jack the Ripper was active for a short period, yet his crimes left an indelible mark. Between August and November 1888, 5 women were murdered in the impoverished East End. These women, Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly, were all believed to be sex workers, and their murders shared a shocking level of mutilation and brutality. The terror began on the morning of August 31st, when the body of Mary Ann Nichols was discovered in Bucks Row. Her throat had been slashed and her abdomen mutilated in a way that suggested rage and surgical precision. Nichols had reportedly been seen alive less than an hour earlier. Witnesses later described seeing a man in a peaked cap and dark coat, but these sightings never led to a clear suspect. Just over a week later, on September 8th, Annie Chapman was found murdered behind a house on Hanbury Street. Her body had been similarly mutilated, with her uterus removed. Witnesses recalled seeing her with a man described as foreign-looking, possibly suggesting that xenophobia may have influenced some witness statements and suspicions. The horror escalated on the night of September 30th in what became known as the double event. Elizabeth Stride was found dead in Dutfield's yard. Her throat had been cut, but her body was not as extensively mutilated as the others. It's believed the killer may have been interrupted, which explains the absence of further mutilation. Less than an hour later, the mutilated body of Catherine Eddowes was discovered in Mitre Square. Her face was slashed, her abdomen torn open, and her kidney removed. Nearby, part of her apron was found in Goulston Street, along with graffiti reading, "The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." This cryptic message further fueled racial tensions in the area and was ordered to be wiped away by police. The final canonical victim, Mary Jane Kelly, was found on November 9th in her room in Miller's Court. Her murder was the most horrific of all. The killer had time and privacy, and the scene was one of grotesque destruction, her body virtually unrecognizable, organs spread across the room. The confined indoor location offered the Ripper an opportunity to mutilate his victim without fear of discovery. What distinguished Jack the Ripper from other killers was not only the brutality of the murders, but also the way he taunted the police and the press. Letters believed to be from the killer were sent to newspapers and investigators. The most infamous of these, the Dear Boss letter, was signed with the name Jack the Ripper, a moniker that would immortalize the case. Other letters included the Saucy Jackie postcard and the Chilling from Hell letter, the latter accompanied by a preserved human kidney. Debates still rage over the authenticity of these letters, whether they were the work of the killer or fabrications by journalists seeking to sell papers. The investigation into the murders was unprecedented in scale. Detectives from both the Metropolitan Police and the City of London Police were involved. Inspector Frederick Aberline, an experienced officer with a deep knowledge of Whitechapel, took a leading role. The police employed new techniques such as crime scene photography, forensic sketches, and even bloodhounds. Unfortunately, the limitations of 19th century forensic science proved a massive hurdle. Poor lighting, lack of fingerprinting, and untrained personnel often compromised crime scenes. The police questioned over 2,000 people, followed up on more than 300 leads, and detained 80 individuals. They even sought assistance from early criminal profilers and mental health experts, hoping to understand the psyche of the killer. One physician suggested the killer may have suffered from a condition known today as paranoid schizophrenia. Among those suspected were Montague John Druitt, a barrister who drowned in the Thames shortly after the last murder; Aaron Kosminski, a Polish Jewish immigrant with a history of mental illness and erratic behavior; Michael Ostrog, a Russian-born conman with violent tendencies; and even painter Walter Sickert, though the latter theory gained popularity much later, largely due to author Patricia Cornwell. The lack of physical evidence and reliance on circumstantial clues made it impossible to charge any of them definitively. The press played a crucial role in shaping the legend of Jack the Ripper. Newspapers, eager to boost sales, published gruesome details, speculative theories, and even invented quotes. Some contemporary publications like the Illustrated Police News used sensationalized illustrations that cemented a terrifying image of the Ripper in the public imagination. Other outlets pushed xenophobic or classist narratives, blaming immigrants or the poor. The term Ripperology emerged decades later, symbolizing the extensive amateur interest in solving the case. The legacy of Jack the Ripper grew not just because of the mystery, but because of how it reflected the underbelly of Victorian society. The East End of London was a place of desperation, poverty, and overcrowding. The Ripper's ability to vanish after each killing highlighted the lack of policing and social structure in the area. The crimes drew attention to the lives of women who were otherwise invisible to the public. Their stories filled newspaper columns, but their lives were often forgotten in the shadows of the killer's legend. Over the decades, countless books, films, documentaries, and even tours have been created around the mystery. Theories have ranged from Freemason conspiracies to time travelers. Despite technological advances, no definitive answers have emerged. Modern DNA analysis, including testing on stamps and envelopes from the Ripper letters, has yielded inconclusive or disputed results. In 2014, author Russell Edwards claimed that mitochondrial DNA linked Aaron Kosminski to a shawl found near Catherine Eddowes' body. However, experts have criticized the methods used and the chain of custody for the evidence. The casebook, Jack the Ripper, remains a leading source of research and archived material, including censored photographs, witness testimonies, police memos, and newspaper clippings from the era. Beyond the crimes themselves, the story of Jack the Ripper reflects deeper truths about Victorian society. The divide between rich and poor, the vulnerability of women, the rise of mass media, and the early struggles of modern policing. The Ripper's murders occurred during a time of rapid change and social unrest, and his ability to vanish into the foggy alleys became symbolic of the chaos and darkness many felt at the time. Despite more than 130 years of speculation, the mystery of Jack the Ripper endures. It reminds us how elusive justice can be, and how the absence of closure can captivate generation after generation. As we reflect on this dark chapter in history, it's important to remember the humanity behind the headlines. Mary Ann, Annie, Elizabeth, Catherine, and Mary Jane were not just victims. They were daughters, friends, and women struggling to survive in a harsh world. Their stories deserve to be remembered with dignity and empathy. The case of Jack the Ripper remains unsolved, but it continues to teach us about the importance of compassion, community, and vigilance. In the face of fear, people came together to protect their neighborhoods, demand accountability, and care for the forgotten. In the end, the story of Jack the Ripper is not just about a killer who vanished into history. It's about the world he haunted and the people who refused to let his darkness define it.